There is a difference in Greek between chronological time and punctual time. One is chronos, which gives us our word chronology, and the other is kairos, an opportunity. Well, here there is an intersection of those two moments, for we are crossing a barrier from one moment of historic time to another, and it's good that we should do so in prayer mode, not in Guinness mode. And the other is that the Lord is touching us here. We are all, except the odd antique, young, and we are listening therefore with ears wide open before the ruination of our existence and therefore of time. So, what has the Lord to say to our heart? This night, quite a few souls will crash into eternity. It's the night in which there is the most amount of celebrating going on around the whole globe, actually. And much drink will flow, and much will go wrong. Have you ever been near a person who's dying? Those who are of a certain age will have been, and will probably have been actually at the moment when it happens. It's a moment in which we lose control. We lose somebody, and something at that moment changes ontologically and cosmically, because there's nothing we can do in any way whatsoever to reach that person again. That person is in voyage, in flight. Big mystery. Now, as it happens, I've been looking at that mystery quite a bit over the last months. Indeed, I've been given a book recently about the analysis of about 100 cases of people who have died and come back, and certain things concur. The experience of release from pain is a constant, because that's what causes death. The body can take no more. And the immediate feeling is one of well-being, therefore. All that pain has gone. But it doesn't stop there. The soul is becoming aware that something is changing. At the moment of death, depending on the form of death, there is a certain uncertainty. It's losing hold of itself, it's losing consciousness. But then a sudden lucidity comes. It's popped out. And then it is, although it's now spirit, very much alive and aware, and actually more aware. The reason is this, that until then it has perceived through the senses. And if one observes how many young people use their senses, they're actually less aware than they were 50 years ago. I mean, the senses of the youth are dulled. Why? Because they're overused. They're bombarded continually, heavily. And just to take one out of the 5, the sense of hearing is considerably reduced because of the heavy bombardment it is obliged to receive. All the time, actually, if you look carefully. Because having these things close to the ear is a continuous weakening of the tympanum. Also, if you have noticed how in the last generation television has changed in nature. The early films produced in black and white had a slow frame change. Now look at produced programs in the recent years and you'll find that everything changes very, very quickly. Therefore the eyes are accustomed to a great amount of variety. Now all that is leading to, therefore, on the senses in the brain that correspond to the senses of the body, to a heavy, heavy flattening, a heavy, heavy overusing. And being formed in a monastic life, one knows the difference, because if there's none of that, there's a huge power in the emptiness of nothing but a book. No access to any artificial noise. It's a complete different mode of operation. closer to reality because there is no virtual reality. The reality is there in one's body. Now, therefore, when a soul who has spent all its existence heavily drained towards and by the overuse of the senses, it's going to get a rude awakening when all that is taken away. And for the first time, it's going to become hugely aware of what it never really investigated in its short innings on this side of eternity. And therefore, one constant that comes through in these experiences, people who have died and come back, is that they're extremely aware. And they have ways of becoming aware. The soul has its own autonomy and is extremely sensitive and aware of things that it couldn't be when actually just confined by the use of the senses to have its knowledge. So, what does that mean? At the moment of, for the first time, having no distraction, it sees its own reality also, without any mercy. There's no more distraction. At that point, it can't switch on the mobile phone. It's what it is and what it's made. It has its baggage, its time, writ large and faced for the first time, its copybook. Then it perceives its state. It begins also to travel, and that's when these NDE experiences change and alter considerably according to where one is going. There are quite a few, even on YouTube actually, experiences related by people who had abused gravely their innings and perceived very quickly the consequences and the company that continues in the beyond, because the choice of company and of orientation just carries on, because the soul follows its weight and is in its sense its own judge. It cannot bear to go towards the light that is refused. It's just a profound orientation, what we call the fundamental option that it can't get away from. It was yes or no fundamentally. So, at that point, some, and we don't know the proportion, but some are in big time trouble. So huge that we can't imagine. One of the great tricks of the enemy of the soul, who hates man because he's taking his place in glory, he lost it, is that he can't bear to see someone else lesser than him getting into what he owned once. So out of jealousy and hatred, similar to what we know as jealousy as hatred, people of bad will, malice, he tries to get them to fail in their use of time. And his great trick right now is distraction. Distraction and therefore superficiality. That means living on the face of, super facies. And souls who cannot be alone start fidgeting with anything but their own interior when they're alone, all the time. Throughout their life actually. Never on this side of the grave face the one issue that matters. It's the best ploy of a Rudnick. So I just leave you with one simple message, you who are young, before you live, don't fall into that trap. So at the beginning of this new year, we pause and we give time back to the one who's given it to us on loan. And for we don't know how long. One day well lived, lived under his authority, lived in grace, is quite different from just another frittering away, from one distraction to another, of the gift of irreversible time.